Hi, and welcome to Ginger English. I'm Sarah, and today we have an A2 level podcast for you. Okay, so imagine this. You live in a normal town, you have neighbors, you go to school, you go to the store. Everything is normal, but then one day the ground starts to smoke. Not a little smoke, a lot of smoke. And it never stops. Ever. That is a real story. It happened in America. And today, I want to tell you all about it. The town is called Centralia. It is in Pennsylvania, and under this town, there is a fire, a real fire, underground. It started in 1962. That is more than 60 years ago, and the fire is still burning today, right now, under the ground. I know. It sounds like a movie, but it is not a movie. It is real life. And the story of Centralia is one of the strangest stories in American history. So stay with me because this one is going to blow your mind. When I first heard about Centralia, I could not believe it. I thought, okay, maybe someone is exaggerating. Maybe the fire stopped a long time ago. But no, scientists check the fire every year. And every year, they say the same thing. The fire is still there. It is still burning, deep under the ground, and here is the really crazy part. Nobody knows exactly when the fire will stop. Some scientists say it could burn for another 100 years. 100 years? That is so hard to imagine. But let me start from the beginning, because to understand Centralia today, you need to know what Centralia was like before the fire. Before everything changed. Centralia was a small mining town. Mining means people dig deep into the ground to find things. In Centralia, they found coal. Coal is a black rock. You can burn it to make heat and energy. For a long time, coal was very important in America. It helped people heat their homes. It helped factories work. It helped trains move. So Centralia was an important place. People moved there to work in the mines. The town grew. At its biggest, about 2,000 people lived in Centralia. There were churches, there were schools, there were stores and restaurants and parks. It was a real community. People knew each other. Families lived there for generations. Grandparents, parents, children, all in the same town. It was a quiet, simple life. And for many years, it was a good life. But everything changed in 1962. And it all started with a very small decision. A decision that nobody thought was dangerous at the time. A decision about trash. Yes, trash. Because in Centralia, the town had a place where they burned old garbage. This place was near an old mine. And one day, that fire got into the mine. Into the coal underground. And once coal starts to burn, it is very, very hard to stop. Nobody stopped it in time. And now, more than 60 years later, the fire is still going, still burning, deep under the streets where people used to live. So, let's talk about coal. Because coal is the reason Centralia existed. And coal is the reason Centralia burned. Coal is a rock, a black rock. It forms deep underground over millions of years. When plants and trees die, they fall into the ground. Over a very, very long time, they become coal. And coal is very useful. You can burn it. When you burn coal, it makes a lot of heat. For hundreds of years, people used coal to heat their homes. They used it to make electricity. They used it to power trains and factories. In Pennsylvania, there was a lot of coal underground. So many people came to Pennsylvania to mine it. Mining is hard work. You go deep underground, you dig, you break the rock, you bring the coal up to the surface. It is dangerous work, but it paid well. And for many families, it was the only work available. Centralia was one of these mining towns. It started as a very small place. Just a few houses, a few workers, but the coal mines were good. There was a lot of coal, so more people came. The town grew bigger and bigger. By the middle of the 1900s, Centralia was a real town, a real community. People were proud of Centralia. They built a church, then another church, then another. At one point, Centralia had 7 churches. 7. For a small town, that is a lot. People also built schools, stores, a post office, a hotel. Everything a normal town needs. Life in Centralia was simple but good. Families knew each other. Kids played in the streets. On weekends, people went to church together. On summer evenings, they sat outside and talked. It was that kind of town. The kind where everybody knows your name. But there was one problem. The mines were getting old. By the 1950s, many of the big coal mines in Centralia were closing. The coal was running out. Workers lost their jobs. Some families moved away. The population started to go down. Centralia was getting smaller, but people stayed because this was their home. Their parents were born here. Their grandparents were buried here. You do not just leave a place like that. You stay. You hope things get better. And then came 1962, and the garbage and the fire. You see, every town needs to deal with trash. Today, we have big trucks that come and take our garbage away. But in 1962, small towns often burned their trash. They had a special area outside of town, an old pit, and they put the garbage in there and burned it. In Centralia, this pit was very close to an old coal mine, an abandoned mine, a mine that nobody used anymore. But the coal was still there, underground, waiting. In May 1962, workers lit the trash on fire, just like always. But this time, something went wrong. The fire did not stay in the pit. It went down into the old mine. And it found the coal. And that was it. That was the moment everything changed. Nobody knew it yet. But a fire had started underground. A fire that would never go out. At first, nobody was scared. Why would they be? A small fire in an old mine. It happens sometimes. Workers tried to put it out. They used water. They used dirt. They tried to fill the pit so the fire could not get more air, but nothing worked. The fire kept going. It went deeper and deeper. Underground, there were tunnels everywhere, old mine tunnels. And through those tunnels, the fire could travel. It moved slowly, but it moved, like a very slow, very dangerous animal, moving through the ground under the town. For the first few years, most people in Centralia did not worry too much. The fire was underground. You could not see it. You could not feel it. Life went on. People went to work. Kids went to school. Everything looked normal on the surface, but under the ground, things were getting worse. By the late 1960s, people started to notice something strange. In some parts of town, the ground felt warm. Not hot, just warm, like the ground was alive. Some people saw small holes in the earth with smoke coming out. Just a little smoke. But still, that is not normal. And the smell. There was a new smell in some parts of town, a chemical smell. Not terrible, but strange. People talked about it. They wondered. But nobody was really afraid yet. The local government knew about the fire. They tried different things to stop it. They dug trenches. A trench is a long, deep hole in the ground. The idea was simple. If you dig a deep hole between the fire and the rest of the coal, the fire cannot cross it. No coal, no fire. Good plan, but it did not work. The fire went around the trenches, or under them. It just kept going. The state government sent help. Workers came with big machines. They tried to dig out the burning coal, but every time they dug, they found more fire. The underground tunnels went in every direction. The fire was everywhere down there. Too big, too deep, too spread out. By the 1970s, the situation was getting serious. The government had spent a lot of money trying to stop the fire, and nothing worked. Some officials started to talk about a difficult idea. Maybe they could not stop the fire. Maybe the only answer was to move the people out, to evacuate the town. But the people of Centralia did not want to leave. This was their home. Some families had lived there for 3 or 4 generations. Their grandparents built their houses. Their parents grew up on these streets. You cannot just tell people to leave a place like that. So the town stayed. The fire stayed. And slowly, things got worse. And then, in 1981, something happened that scared everyone. Something that made the whole country pay attention to the little town of Centralia, Pennsylvania. It involved a 12-year-old boy and a hole in the ground, and it was terrifying. His name was Todd Domboski. He was 12 years old, just a normal kid. One February morning in 1981, he was walking in his grandmother's backyard, just walking, like kids do. And then, without any warning, the ground opened under his feet. He fell into a hole that appeared suddenly in the ground. It was about 1.5 meters wide, and it went down, very deep, more than 40 meters deep. That is like falling from a 12-story building, but underground, into the dark. Todd grabbed the edge of the hole with his hands. He held on. He screamed for help. Luckily, his cousin was nearby. His cousin ran over and pulled him out. Todd was safe, but just barely. When people looked into that hole, they were horrified. Hot smoke was coming up from inside. The air in the hole was full of carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is a very dangerous gas. You cannot see it. You cannot smell it. But if you breathe too much of it, you die. If Todd had fallen to the bottom of that hole, he would not have survived. This moment changed everything. Before, many people could ignore the fire. It was underground. You could not see it. But now the ground was opening up and swallowing children. Now it was real. Now it was dangerous. Now it was impossible to ignore. The story of Todd Domboski went all over the country. Newspapers wrote about it. TV news talked about it. People in California and New York and Texas were reading about this little town in Pennsylvania, where the ground could open and take you at any moment. It was shocking. It was frightening. And it forced the government to act. The federal government, that means the national government in Washington, decided to study the problem seriously. They sent scientists and engineers. They made maps of where the fire was, how big it was, where it was going, and the results were not good. The fire had spread a lot. It was under a big part of the town now, and it was still moving. Scientists said that the fire was moving slowly toward more and more of Centralia. If nothing was done, eventually the fire would be under the whole town. The ground could become very unstable. More holes could open. More dangerous gases could fill people's homes. People could get sick. People could die. The government had a decision to make, a very hard decision. They offered money to the people of Centralia, money to leave, money to buy a new house somewhere else, money to start over. Some families took the money and left. They were scared. They had children. They did not want to risk it, but others refused. They said no. This is my home. I am not leaving, not for any amount of money. And so Centralia split. Some people left. Some people stayed, and the town got smaller and smaller, and the fire kept burning. By the early 1980s, Centralia was becoming a very different place. Houses were empty, streets were quiet, stores were closed. The town that once had 2,000 people was getting smaller every year, but some people still stayed, and they had a very clear message for the government. We are not leaving. This is our home, and you cannot make us go. These people were not crazy. They were not careless. They just loved their town. They had memories there. Their whole lives were in Centralia. One woman said in an interview that she was born in her house. Her mother was born in that same house, and she planned to die in that house too. That is a very powerful feeling, a feeling that many people can understand. But the government was getting more and more worried. In 1984, the United States Congress made a big decision. They gave $42 million to help the people of Centralia move. $42 million? That is a huge amount of money, especially in 1984. The government wanted everyone out. They said it was too dangerous to stay. Most people accepted the money. They packed their things. They said goodbye to their neighbors. They left their houses, their churches, their streets. It was heartbreaking. Imagine leaving the house where you grew up, where your children were born, where so many memories live, and knowing you can never come back. The government bought the houses, and then they knocked them down. One by one, the houses of Centralia were destroyed. The streets became empty. The town became a ghost town, a real ghost town. Not in a movie, in real life. But not everyone left. A small group of people refused. They went to court. They fought the government. They said, "You cannot force us to leave our homes in America. This is a free country." And the courts agreed with them. The remaining residents were allowed to stay for the rest of their lives, but after they die, their houses will go to the state. And that will be the end. So today, Centralia still exists, but it is almost empty. The population went from 2,000 people to just a handful. Some sources say 5 people, some say 7. The exact number changes, but it is a very, very small number. And the streets are still there. You can walk down them, but there are no houses on most of them. Just empty lots where houses used to be. Trees are growing where living rooms used to be. Grass covers the old foundations. Nature is slowly taking back the land. And under all of it, the fire is still burning. You can see the smoke rising from cracks in the ground. You can feel the warmth if you put your hand near the earth. It is strange. It is eerie, and it is completely real. Now, you might be wondering, what does Centralia look like today? Can you visit it? And what happens when you get there? The answer is yes. You can visit Centralia. It is not a closed area. There are no big fences keeping people out. You can just drive there, and many people do. Every year, thousands of visitors come to Centralia. They come from all over America. Some come from other countries too. They want to see it with their own eyes. A real town, almost empty, with fire underground. And when you arrive, it is a very strange feeling. You drive in and you see streets. Real streets with street signs and everything, but there are almost no buildings. Just open land. Quiet. Very quiet. It feels like the whole world stopped here a long time ago and forgot to start again. One of the most famous things to see in Centralia is Graffiti Highway. Well, it was famous. Graffiti Highway was a part of the old Route 61. This road was closed in 1993 because the ground under it became too unstable. The road cracked, it buckled, it moved up and down because of the heat underground. So they closed it. But people still walked on it. And over the years, visitors painted graffiti all over the old road. Thousands and thousands of paintings. Names, pictures, messages, art. The road became like a long outdoor art gallery. It was strange and beautiful at the same time. But in 2020, the state finally closed Graffiti Highway completely and covered it with dirt. They did not want people walking on unstable ground above the fire. It was a safety issue. So now it is gone. But people still talk about it, and there are many photos and videos online if you want to see what it looked like. Today, if you visit Centralia, you can walk the empty streets. You can see the smoke coming from the ground in some places. You can read information signs that tell you the history of the town. And you can visit the cemetery. The cemetery is still there, still maintained, still used. Because even though the town is almost gone, the people who are buried there are still remembered. There is something very emotional about that cemetery. When you stand there and look around, you see the empty streets, the empty lots, the quiet. And you think about the families who lived here, who loved this place, who did not want to leave. And many of them are still there, under the ground, next to the fire that destroyed their town. It is sad, but it is also a little beautiful because it shows how much people can love a place, how strong that connection can be, even when everything around it is gone. So, what happens next? What is the future of Centralia? That is a question many people ask. And the honest answer is nobody knows for sure. The fire is still there. Scientists check it regularly. They measure the temperature underground. They check where the fire is moving. And the news is not great. The fire has spread. It covers a very large area now, much larger than in 1962 when it started. Some estimates say the fire covers more than 200 hectares underground. That is a huge area, and the coal underground, there is still a lot of it. Remember, Centralia was a big mining town. There was coal everywhere under that area. Scientists say that there is enough coal underground to keep the fire burning for another 100 to 200 years, maybe longer. Think about that. This fire could still be burning in the year 2200 or 2300, long after everyone alive today is gone. Can the fire be stopped? People have asked this question for decades, and the technical answer is maybe. But it would cost an enormous amount of money. We are talking about billions of dollars. You would need to dig out all the burning coal or pump something into the ground to remove all the oxygen. Fire needs oxygen to burn. No oxygen, no fire. But doing that underground in miles and miles of old tunnels, that is extremely difficult and extremely expensive. So for now, nobody is trying to stop the fire. The government decided long ago that it was cheaper to move the people out than to fight the fire. And that decision was made. And the people were moved, and the fire was left to burn. There is one more thing I want to tell you about Centralia, something that many people do not know. Centralia inspired a very famous video game, and later a movie. You have probably heard of it. It is called Silent Hill. Silent Hill is a horror story about a town covered in fog and smoke. A town that is dark and strange and dangerous. A town where the ground burns. When the creators of Silent Hill were looking for inspiration, they found Centralia. And the image of smoke rising from the ground, of empty streets, of a town that was alive but not alive, that became the world of Silent Hill. So if you have ever played that game or seen that movie and thought, this is so scary, it could not be real. Well, now you know. It is real. It was inspired by a real place, a real town in Pennsylvania, where the ground really does smoke, where the streets really are empty, and where a fire has been burning underground for more than 60 years. Centralia is proof that sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, and scarier too. And that brings us to the end of today's podcast. But before I go, I want to take a moment and think about what the story of Centralia really means. Because it is not just a story about fire. It is a story about people, about home, about what we hold on to and why. Think about the families who lived in Centralia. They did not do anything wrong. They just lived their lives. They went to work. They raised their children. They went to church on Sundays. And then one day, because of one small fire in one trash pit near one old mine, everything changed. Their whole world changed. And they had no control over it. Some of them left. They took the money and they started over somewhere new. That was a brave choice, too. Starting over is not easy. Finding a new home, new neighbors, a new community, it takes strength. But some of them stayed. They fought for their right to stay. They went to court. They said no to the government. They chose their memories over their safety. And I think most of us can understand that feeling, even if we might make a different choice. The story of Centralia also teaches us something important about nature. We think we control the world around us. We build towns. We dig mines. We burn things. We think we are in charge, but sometimes nature reminds us that we are not. A fire starts underground and burns for 60 years, and there is nothing we can do about it. That is humbling. That is a little scary, but it is also true. And I think that is why so many people are fascinated by Centralia. It is real, it is strange, it is sad, and it makes you think about home, about nature, about what really matters. If you want to learn more about Centralia, there are some great documentaries and articles online. Just search for Centralia, Pennsylvania mine fire, and you will find a lot. And if you are ever driving through Pennsylvania, you can actually visit. It is a strange experience, but an unforgettable one. Okay, that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening to Ginger English. I really hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new. If you did, please give us a like right now. It helps more people find our podcast. And if you are not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button. We have new episodes every week, all at the A2 level, so you can keep learning English in a fun and interesting way, and share this episode with a friend who is learning English, or with someone who loves strange and true stories, because this one is definitely both. I am Sarah. Thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.